I'm on their page. Nothing is happening.
I just hit play and there's a commercial.
I mean, I'm looking at my page. It looks like everything it looks like everything is still offline on my page. Let me see.
That's what I see too.
Yeah. Maybe it goes live when we go live.
Oh, I think I see something.
Oh, yep. I see something.
Yep.
Where's this link?
There's like a game. I'll send you what I think it is. I don't.
I think we have a chat here. I can put the link in. Yep, there we go.
You bastard. Oh, okay. Looks like I posted them. Hold on.
Some of these audio is not through a speaker or a headphone.
Ooh.
There we go. I can see everyone.
I have a commercial. Oh, hi, there I am. Okay, looks like there is a little bit of lag.
You might want to turn your gain up just a little bit more.
Yeah.
Oh.
I hear you.
I hear you just fine.
You can hear everything.
Who do you want to start with?
Hi, my name is Gabriel D. Los Angeles, son of Chief Andy D. Los Angeles of the Snoqualmie Nation out here in Washington State. I do a lot of work on, games and play research. I have a paper out in the some years ago in the International Journal of Role Playing, and not much of an online presence outside of if you know me on Facebook. I mean, you can find me on Twitter, but like I'm not really hanging out there that much. But I guess you can see the things that I do in the future of finishing my PhD on academia.edu under my full name.
Hi, I'm April. I am not currently working on any projects. I am just an accounting person for a living, so I'm just happy to be here. But I have several years of ST experience. So if you know me on Facebook, that's where you can find me.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amber. I'm also known as the Rebel Selkie on Twitch and Twitter. And again, I I'm not working on any projects right now myself outside of this amazing game, and then I will also be doing a game, Blood City, the Chicago by Night, starting next Sunday. I'll be starting on that. Yeah, no, outside of that, I work in an after-school enrichment program up here in Buffalo, New York, and that's, yeah, pretty much it. Check.
So I'm James. I don't have any exciting new projects, but I would like to hype the. Oh, you can find me online on Twitter at Umbravenetier. I don't talk about much except politics and video games, but I'd like to hype the Mind's Eye Society, which is a group that kind of got me in touch with Alan here, and we're a LARPer group that does WAD and COD mostly, and I'm excited to be here. Love Hunter.
Well, yeah, so I'm James Zambrano, but if we want to make it easier, everyone can refer to me as JF for this. You can find me on Facebook as James Zambrano. I have a Patreon at JF Zambrano. And I have done some writing for Mage 20th edition. I've been a collaborator on every book. I've written on Gods and Monsters and in the Truth Beyond Paradox book. And also, since you invited us to talk about projects we're currently working on, I actually can't tell anyone for 2 weeks what it is I'm working on. However, what I will say is that in about that time frame, it's going to be announced that I'm working on a really big and awesome White Wolf related project, and I really wish I could tell you because I'm so excited about it. I'm sorry, I'm not allowed. It's the law. The law says so. Yeah, I would love to tell you.
Alan, they're saying on the Twitch chat that they can't hear you.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
I mean, it's on them if they blow out their speakers. You can turn up the gain as much as you want.
You might end up having to be really intimate with your mic for the rest of the night because it does work great when you are doing that, even though it's right in front of your face.
I mean, it sounds great.
It looks like they said still no.
Wow.
They can hear all of us except Alan.
What?
Like at all?
Oh,
yes.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Literally nothing, not at all. Is there an outgoing sound function?
Then why would it pick us up?
That's so weird. Yeah, I should be being picked up along with, because, oh, tech problems. Give me a moment to try to resolve this. And
you have multiple sources out.
Oh, you hear me?
Looks like
yay. Woohoo, okay, I am heard.
Hooray.
I'm a real boy now, okay.
Whatever you did, do that.
I didn't do anything but wave my mouse around, so.
Oh.
I must have had
technology.
Magic.
Okay. So let's back up then. So this is our session 0, and session 0 is all about character creation. Thank you. Session 0 is all about character creation. This is where we can deep dive in and kind of figure out the processes so that those who aren't familiar with Hunter will have a good idea of how to go about making their ideal version of supernatural, or what have you. Um, how many of you are familiar with Hunter, the Vigil, as a game? A little bit. Okay.
Yeah.
So
That it
We're
exists.
familiar with it.
I've played one game of first edition. That's how familiar I am.
okay.
And I've read it. I've read bits and pieces of first edition.
I've strange enough, I haven't. This is my first time playing any of the second edition stuff, so this is going to be a little rough. I have played first edition, and the Chronicles of Darkness in general first edition. So this would be a great introduction to everything.
I have none of those experiences.
So just as a little bit of background, the Hunter is part of the Chronicles of Darkness, and for those who aren't familiar, Chronicles of Darkness is basically a world filled with supernatural entities that are one way or another always acting in ways that affect the life of everyday humans. Those entities may be vampires, werewolves, changelings, the entire gamut of White Wolf style supernatural creatures.
Fallen angels. Fallen angels, perhaps.
Fallen angels are there in there somewhere. I know that the game is a fan of the fallen angels.
Yes.
Sadly, we won't be encountering any fallen angels that I know of in our first encounter.
No.
So, in Hunter, with all the other pieces of the Chronicles of Darkness, you're basically, this really empowered supernatural creature who's given all the props to do whatever they want to within the context of their tale. And humans are kind of your victims. They get pushed around. There's not a whole lot they can do to stop you. But in Hunter, we turn the tide, and in Hunter we play human characters who have said, we've had enough, and we're going to fight back. And so in Hunter, you're playing people who are actually not only fighting back, but they're putting other people together to get an actual momentum of fighting back, to push back the tide of the supernatural. So Hunter is a game ultimately about fighting back against all the monstrosities out there that are picking away at our societies. It is a game that has tiers, and the tiers that we work with are cells. Cells are basically a group of people. It's like the Scooby Gang, right? They got together and they decided they're going to deal with the situation, and they've dealt with it. That's tier 1. Tier 2 is where we get into groups that are a bit more organized. These are compacts, and that's where our level of play is going to happen in these next few sessions. And compacts are organized groups of hunters that are working to protect a region. It might be a big city, it might be a state, it might be an area bigger than a few states. But they're, for the most part, localized, but not so local just as to just be a cell that only works in one spot. And then we have conspiracies. And conspiracies are these great big multi-national organizations. They're shadow organizations that sit in the background and kind of pull at the threads. These are like your Men in Black, your secret Illuminati organizations, and they have been doing the long fight against the forces of darkness. And they've seen and done things over generations that most humans will hope to never have to encounter. So as I said, that's tier 3. We will be dealing mostly with all with tier 2 compact. So once we start the character creation process, at some point I'm going to ask you to pick your compact, and hopefully you've already thought about this. If you haven't, I'll give you a quick rundown of what's available for you. Let's just say I turned up Alan's channel in OBS. Is that, or is it that? Oh, hopefully I'm louder. So the next part of this, before we actually get into the character creation, I want to do some safety precaution stuff. So I like to engage people in safe spaces, and this is a horror game, and we're likely to touch on things that make people uncomfortable on different levels. So what I want us to, before we deep dive into to making these awesome characters, I want to talk about what are the things that are our hard nose, and what are the things that are just things that we are uncomfortable with and maybe willing to negotiate if they come up, but we prefer for them not to come up. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
So let's start with Amber.
Oh, good. Um, so as a horror fan, there's very little in the way of squeamishness.
Mm-hmm.
However, one thing that I am, whether regardless if it comes up in the game or not, I am very I guess a soft limit for me would be forms of sexual assault,
Mm-hmm.
and I believe that's probably the one that I have a limit for out of anything we plausibly could come across. And that's probably the only one I could think of.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm totally down with no sexual assault. That is also my big no.
Mine
Mhm.
too.
Same.
Yeah, agreed.
Yes, agreed.
Okay. And so a soft. What was your soft limit thing?
Oh, well, that was the limit. I set a soft limit in regards to that, just in case someone wanted to negotiate it and what it would look like. But I would prefer it not to appear in the game if
Okay.
possible.
Okay. Well, I can guarantee you there will be no sexual assault.
Woo!
any kind of sexual violence in any game that I'm running. So that's a hard no for me. April.
We already covered my hard no. I am not okay with forms of sexual assault. There's just other ways to create horror stories.
Mhm.
Fair
Agreed.
enough. Gabe.
Same. I mean, I mean, inclusion in that, like systemically,
Mm-hmm.
like, I guess, trafficking stories would also be kind of like meh.
Mhm.
Okay. Also not a problem. JF.
So that the thing we've all discussed is also a hard no for me, but everyone's on the same page. Also, I'm a little bit uncomfortable with, like, I love horror. Horror is my jam,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm a little bit uncomfortable with extreme forms of violence done to children. I don't really want to deal with that if I can avoid it.
Okay.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Yeah, no interview.
No interview.
Oh man, I interviewed the vampire with Claudia.
Oh, yeah. I was actually watching one of the other streams this morning, and someone mentioned something called the Serbian movie.
Ooh,
Oh,
ooh.
And I just went to look at a trailer to see what is this thing, and that is absolutely the example of everything I don't ever want to do in a game.
Mhm.
Okay, so child violence, trafficking, sexual violence. James F. James, yeah, F.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with JF. I'm a new dad. Kid violence and is just not. It's hard for me to reconcile it in my head. So I think it's pretty much agreed. I can't think of anything else
Okay.
off the top of my head. I mean, I've been playing horror games for over a decade, so yeah.
Yeah. Those things are all make perfect sense to me. I personally would also add as a soft thing certain levels of torture. I'm not a fan of that kind of violence, and definitely egregious on-screen violence. Like I'm perfectly okay. For instance, if you've seen American Werewolf in London, I could describe to you the way that the first werewolf transformation happens in perfect detail, but I'm not going to like give you Saw levels of violence or
Okay.
Hostel. That's just not my jam.
So not gratuitous.
Yes, not gratuitous.
Cartoonish?
Cartoonish, pornographic violence. At some point, we will stop. So that's the next thing I want to talk about, and that is the idea of the X card. You're always welcome to throw up an X or drop an X into the chat if we hit something that is a problematic space for you that maybe you didn't expect it. There's no need to explain why. Just let us know that something's going down, and then we will fade the scene out and move on to another scene.
Okay.
Everyone okay with that?
That's great.
I think that's it for my. Oh, so there's also this. the idea of a check-in. So sometimes we're going to be having things that are a little uncomfortable, but people are kind of digging the weirdness because it is a horror game. So maybe as when we're in those spaces, you might see me just kind of do an okay sign to say, hey, are you okay? Anyone here within the group can do that. And then if you're uncomfortable but okay, give us a thumbs up. And if you are, and then the other options are kind of I'm working through it, and then kind of a thumbs down. And we'll treat and thumbs down as both no's, and then that's another opportunity to move on. And the goal there is so that we can deal with funky stuff without breaking our dramatic stride, right? We want to maintain momentum of our narrative, but we don't want to,
We use that system in every LARP I'm involved with, and I love it, so I'm on board.
Okay, awesome. And I've seen it. I've only recently started LARPing, and when I was introduced to those, I was like, oh my goodness, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's so good. It helps so much.
Okay, so now that we've got those important things out of the way, things you should know. As I said before, we're going to be making characters from different compacts, but overall we'll be amalgamating those characters into a single purpose cell. So I'm perfectly okay with inter-party conflict. However, I don't want crazy inter-party conflict. I don't want, this isn't like a D&D game, so I don't have to worry about, someone's rogue picking everyone's pocket and, all that jazz. But, just kind of keep the inter-party conflict dramatically interesting. Make sure it's always applicable to what's going on with your characters. It's always good to kind of think about what your character's goals are versus the narrative goals, and find ways to kind of make them blend with each other. The game that we're going to be doing, the story that we're going to be involved in, is going to be taking place in Chicago. Anybody here ever been to Chicago?
Yep.
Well, Chicago is an awesome place. This is my hometown, and it is huge. I did some quick research this morning. We've got 2.7 million people in this city, which makes us about 500,000 more people than the country of Slovenia.
Wow.
So we are bigger than many. There are other small European countries that as a single city that we're bigger in. So there's a lot that can happen within the context of our city. We've got like 234 square miles of territory that the city covers. So your compact actions can take you all over the city, and all the city itself is filled with lots of little neighborhoods. The area that we're going to be focused on is a neighborhood called Uptown. And what's great about Uptown is a landing zone of immigrants and various economical statuses and all kinds of folks. There's just this huge melting pot. So there's an opportunity to meet all kinds of weird supernatural denizens as well, because people bring their supernature with them. So with that in mind, the first thing I would like to do is hear from you what kind of character concepts you're thinking of. And the idea behind the character concept is this is just a quick phrase that captures the big idea of your hunter and how they engage with the world and kind of how the world sees you. So, it can be something like, smart-ass reporter, or happy-go-lucky ice cream truck driver. I don't know. Be creative. Who would like to volunteer to begin?
Can we ask questions before we
Yes, you may.
jump? Because if we're in Chicago, what point of modernity are we in?
We are in Chicago, slightly in the future.
Oh.
So it is a nowish Chicago.
Okay.
Things are kind of as they are now, but slightly worse, slightly darker. A few years, imagine that. A couple years in the future, and some stuff is going down.
Safe to say the Democrats didn't win then.
Wasn't gonna say it.
Oh, we're gonna lose some people watching the stream.
Well, there goes a follower.
It is safe to say that there is a lot of discontent in the world. A lot of unhappy, unsafe people.
Who got what?
So
Well, I'm thinking a little bit because a couple of us both had a teacher concept, even though they were different levels of teacher, and so I'm going to shift my concept a little bit. So I'm going to think a little bit.
oh,
I'll start. I was thinking of basically being a veteran paramedic who has finally seen too much in her van.
veteran
So,
paramedic. I like that. Okay. It's April.
I'm liking what I was scanning of Sworn, and I'm thinking more on the lines of academic or scientist because I'm just not going to stray too far outside of my own self and play
Okay.
native scientist.
What kind of academic are you?
No, I can't. Haven't been able to parse whether or not I want to be able to do more science, indigenous science,
Mhm.
or just have more access to books because I don't understand yet why scientists wouldn't also have access to books.
Well,
One of the things I really liked about the Sworn write-up was that it kind of implied that they were kind of experts in cataloging different types of monsters,
Mhm.
and I feel like you could apply indigenous science toward that because it's much more open to understanding things like that, whereas Western science would be like, this doesn't even exist, right? So like,
that kind of falls squarely within the world of anthropology, journal of biological sciences, studying cryptids.
I think I'll go scientist then.
So, what kind of scientists are you? Tell me about this scientist in his life, their life. That's one thing I also forgot to do was ask people about pronouns. If people have
he, him.
particular pronouns that they want to be, that they should be called by.
I'm fine with he, him, or they, them.
Okay. James?
He, him here.
Rock, she, hers.
She, hers?
she, hers on both IC and OOC.
Say that
Yeah.
again?
She, her on both IC and OOC.
Okay.
Yeah, he, him.
Gabe?
He, him.
He, him. And I am also a he, him. So, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there. So, scientist of what? So, when I ask what type, it's like, it's the particular skills of the scientists we can determine later on, but kind of how they move through the world is what I'm concerned with. Are you a curious scientist? Are you a forgetful? Are you a troublemaker?
I need a flaw.
There's not so much a flaw, it's just a characteristic of your scientist.
Hyper attentive planner.
Hyper attentive. Amber.
Mm-hmm. So the kind of concept I was going for my character was, academic, but I was thinking more along the lines of like the nosy librarian.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Just so many things in the community, like libraries in general are huge hubs for the community, especially in larger cities where people have less access to certain resources.
Sure.
So to an extent, the amount of gossip that goes on and just certain things not piecing together, how many times can you poke at something before it pokes back, right?
Right. That's awesome. You're going to love this first chronicle then.
Yeah.
It's librarian friendly.
Okay.
James F.
So I feel like I'm repeating a motive here, but I was going to channel one of my first Chronicles of Darkness characters who was a professor of folklore and history. And it was the concept was a professor of folklore who discovers that all those books he reads are true.
Mm-hmm.
But if you feel that maybe we've got too many academics going on, I can come up. Okay.
Have
cool.
you played Call of Cthulhu? we can totally play a game of academics.
Well, that means you're going to go insane first, if you know the stories.
Oh, look, I found a book in her library that's
And JF.
Okay, so I'm hearing the spread here, and I think I can do this other concept I was thinking about. I actually think I'm interested in playing ex-tribal police who got really insworn, who got really frustrated with the limitations of being able to handle maybe like skirting on the edges of like monsters doing things, having like not only his legal position frustrating him, but also the amount that the U.S. government frustrated him, so he quit it and he's just ready to go to town and take out some monsters.
Awesome. I can dig all of these things.
Vigilante.
These all make me excited.
Yep.
I can see all these characters wreaking havoc through the streets of Chicago.
Not just the libraries.
Not just the libraries. Though I've seen some action in some libraries, I will say.
We all seen Ghostbusters.
So the next thing are aspirations, and these are a step down from your character concept, and they're these personal goals. They're personal goals, or they're dramatic events that affect the shape of your character's story. So these are very much about your character's narrative, and they're the kind of things that will help us see this character grow over time. So they can be simple things like banish a demon or fight a werewolf, or they can be bigger, like educate the masses about the supernatural affecting your lives. And they can be really personal things like track down your uncle who went missing, or free your family from a curse. We want you to come up with 3 things that are big aspirations for your character. And just in terms of in interest of time, maybe what we'll do tonight is just have each of you come up with 1 aspiration, and then offline we'll talk some more and figure out what those other 2 aspirations are. But let's figure out what's a big aspiration for your character. And you should all be writing these things down on the character sheets. We're using these Chronicles of Darkness character sheets. If you don't have that, then just use a piece of paper. Yay, you got yours. So personal goals are dramatic events that are of interest or rather important to your character.
My character's aspiration is going to be to stop seeing. She's been a veteran, so she's seen the worst of it, but she started to see the worst of it that doesn't make any sense. So her long-term aspiration is finding a way to get less of that in her ambulance.
Less of the weird in her ambulance?
Yep.
Okay.
Taking less bodies to the morgue from monsters wreaking havoc.
Okay. That's good. Who wants to go next? Amber?
Sure. I think my character would like to see her community kept safe. And I think that's her biggest aspiration, is like seeing less big and bad come through where she lives, where she works. Just in general, just helping to kind of weed out the bad and the ugly.
Sure. Okay. And these are things that when they happen, they are going to help your character to feel better in a lot of ways. They're going to help you regain willpower. They're going to help you reset yourself. They're going to do all these things for you. So some of them may not happen in the course of this short chronicle we're going to do, but some of them might. It depends on who will ask for it. So James Foster.
I'm going to go with a big aspiration that has a more narrow focus.
Okay.
One of the events that really turned my character on the Vigil was his sister started seeing things and then she disappeared. And so he doesn't know what took her or what possessed her to see these things, but she's been missing and he's looking for her.
Okay. Please. So he's trying to find his sister. Awesome.
Or the monster that took her.
Oh, the monster that took her. And JF?
I would like to save someone's life for once, because it's always been taken from me.
Yes.
Very cool.
Save a life.
Mhm.
Awesome. And Gabriel.
Ooh. Um. To decolonize the supernatural and prove our stories are true. Too close to home.
That's a huge one. Okay. Decolonize the supernatural. We're gonna have to talk a little bit about what that means in terms of your character. I can see a whole bunch of things in my head for what that could be. Yeah, that's big. You don't go small, do you?
Go home.
Yes, that's not why I'm producing a degree like this.
Okay. So these are all great starts, and so I also want you to think about 2 more of these that you can bring to the table next week, or rather over the course of this week as we refine your characters. So when we hit the ground running next week, we'll have all these little story hooks that we can somehow work into the narrative. So the next level from the aspirations is going to be anchors. So anchors, these are these things that help define who you are as a person. They're kind of, I like to think of them kind of like your alignment, but it's like your personal thing, right? And so you get 3 of these, and I'm going to go through all 3 of these because they're important. And they're going to directly affect our play immediately because they really affect your ability to regain things like willpower and whatnot. So they are a virtue and a vice. These are one-word traits to describe your personality and your defining motivations, right? So it could be things like greedy or ambitious or I don't know, hypervigilant, or a one-word thing. One is a virtue, one is a vice, and then there's a touchstone. And a touchstone is someone that you feel safe around, somebody who helps you to center yourself, someone that you trust, and they help to ground you. Everybody begins the game with one touchstone, one person out there who is like they're your rock. So let's start with what do you want to start with, virtues or vices?
Vices.
Vices. We all like vices.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to start us off, Amber? What's a vice for your what we have here? What do you have for your nosy librarian?
I would say one of her probably biggest vices is how incredibly stubborn and short-sighted she gets when she becomes like hyper-focused on something that's going on.
So stubbornness. Which one is it? Stubborn or short-sighted?
Let's go with stubborn.
Stubborn. Okay. I like stubborn.
Mm-hmm.
James F.
I think when things get a little stressful, Mr. Professor here goes for the sugar cabinet. So maybe in the old days it would have been gluttonous, but I don't know if that quite applies.
Gluttonous? Are you saying that he basically has a sweet tooth, and that's like he kind of has he eats when he's in a nervous space, but sweet stuff?
Yeah, he's always got like some candy in his pocket, or he'll go home and after a rough night and eat a bunch of food. Yeah, gluttonous probably would be I can't think of a better word.
It's got to be I see what you're saying, because gluttonous has a different context.
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
It's got a bigger, more intensely consumptive, grossly consumptive context to it. And this is more of a habit, yeah?
Yeah.
Maybe something like I don't know, a candy habit or a sugar habit.
Like a tick.
A tick. He's got a pocket full of jelly babies.
He's compulsive.
Compulsive, that's a good one.
Like that.
He's a compulsive eater, or compulsive something.
Compulsive.
He needs something contextual, and he, instead of smoking or drinking, he long ago was like, well, I've got some candy in my pocket, or I've got crackers in my desk at school or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Compulsive. I like that.
Okay, I like that. Compulsive. Call that compulsive nibbler. Okay, well, that's a good start. We can come back to it. JF. Advice.
Easily frustrated.
Easily frustrated.
Does that work?
I guess. If we tried to reduce that more to a word, what would we call that? Impatient?
Okay, I'll go with that. I'll go with impatient.
All right. So impatient. Gabe? Advice.
Apparently the character sheet you sent us has drop down boxes. So
it does.
I'm gonna go with we're just doing the vices.
Yeah.
I'll just go with arrogant.
Okay. I can see that.
That's classic.
I wasn't gonna say
wait
that.
a second. I wasn't even typecasting myself.
I didn't actually realize that had drop downs on it. Realize that those are all suggestions. You're not locked into those ideas.
Oh, cool.
So,
okay.
April.
I am gonna go for she's pretty dogmatic. She has a very stern belief of what's right and wrong. So I'll go with the dogmatic vice.
Dogmatic. So this she just digs her heels in.
Yeah. She has a very strong moral compass, and she's very confident in what she feels is right or wrong.
I can dig it. So we have an idea of the places that you retreat to when you're in a tight spot. What are your virtues? What lifts you up when you're in a tight spot? We'll go backwards. Let's start with April and go back around the loop.
We're going to virtues now.
Mm-hmm.
I would say her virtue is honesty. She's seen it all, so she's just ready to give you basically the truth for what it is. Like, she's a rip the Band-Aid off kind of person, so I see that she just generally falls back to honesty because it's kind of necessary for her day-to-day life.
Honest and dogmatic.
Yeah.
Those are great balancing forces. Gabe.
I'm going with patient because I need patient and arrogant to equal calculating at some point.
Okay.
We're gonna get along great, aren't we?
Patient. Okay. JF.
I'm not sure what the right word for this is. I'm thinking in my head, I'm thinking charitable, but kind of what I'm thinking is that I'm interested in devoting what resources I have, especially my time, into helping others.
Mm-hmm.
Loving.
Monkish.
Passionate.
I wouldn't say it comes from a feeling of love. It comes from a feeling of maybe like responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Generous to a point.
Generous. I can use generous, right?
Generous is a good term.
Okay.
Generous.
Thanks, Gabe.
I just keep thinking of the old monk's vow of poverties.
Mm-hmm.
And James?
I'm going to go with optimistic.
Optimistic.
Mm.
Okay.
Is that a virtue?
In the world,
Like
in a city filled with darkness and shadows, optimism is great.
The suggested word is actually hopeful, but I just like optimistic better.
I like optimistic. Let's go with it. And last but not least, Amber.
I would say she's very compassionate.
Compassionate. Is that compassionate across the board, or like compassionate to people or animals, or?
I would say across the board. Probably more specifically, she has a lot of emotional attachment, like from her being a younger, like a bookish child, like having a lot of compassion for like a lot of the young new readers coming into the library, or like and that's also a dual thing of wanting to keep like them safe. So
Awesome. Okay, yay for virtues and vices. Now on touchstones, who's important to you? Who is your rock?
you're starting with me.
Sure, go for it.
I would say her touchstone is probably she has this pen pal friend, or not necessarily a pen pal, but someone she knew who ended up moving very far away.
Mm-hmm.
She still corresponds with them very, very, they're like her confidant, really. Like she, without saying so many words, talks about a lot of what she's experiencing or what she's seeing. And they are kind of a person who has been able to kind of walk her through things and kind of keep her sane and just, continuing on in the day.
Okay. Pen pal. That's funny. Are pen pals still a thing? I kind of feel like the internet made
Yeah,
everybody
yeah.
a pen pal.
I mean,
Lots of people are really up on pen pals.
Well, it's not necessarily the correct word, but like someone who lives in a different country that they correspond with in multiple ways, Facebook, but also like small packages, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh no, I get it. That's fine. So there's this long distance person who, how much do you tell them? Do they know about what you're doing as a hunter, or they're just like, do you keep them safe from all that information?
I would say, considering how far away they are from each other, she probably wouldn't want to risk them knowing everything for fear that would put them into some kind of situation.
Okay.
So she probably is as honest as she feels comfortable being, and probably is just very good about rewording things so that they're not completely truthful with that person, but enough that they can like get it off their chest and talk about some of the things going on.
Okay. And is this a person that you can easily get access to? Like, can you easily FaceTime them or text them?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. And that question is just more about like how easy is it to work that person into the narrative?
Mm-hmm.
Sure. James.
There's one thing I know being married to someone with a PhD, it's that doctors love to go out drinking and talk about what their field is. So Mr. Professor here has a colleague, maybe in a different program or department, who can kind of challenge him academically. Like they see their respective fields as opposite sides of the same coin, so they're constantly. So it's someone he can easily go out and just feel normal with. So another professor at whatever university.
He's got a drinking buddy who's another professor.
Yeah, maybe someone he went to grad school with or something.
And is this a person that he's on good terms with, or are they like rivals, or what's their relationship beyond drinking? Or do they stay long enough to have a relationship?
If I understand faculty at all, it's kind of both. Like friends who are also competing for, that next big thing. Like you're careful around your buddies in the same program because they might scoop your research. So, so they're friends, but they've always competed against each other, maybe for like grades or whatever.
Friendly rivals.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. JF.
So I think I want it to be my uncle. I think that I was probably like, this uncle's actually more like a father figure. I was probably raised by my aunt and my uncle, and he's the one who, like, as I was growing up, like just showed me all the things I was supposed to know about, being an adult. Maybe even encouraged me to go in the direction I went. Just like a general like masculine rock in my life, like that kind of rock that a lot of us don't get because of how masculine people act, but he was a good one.
Okay. Awesome. Uncles are great when they're great.
Yeah.
Gabe.
We're moderately in the future, yeah?
Moderately, like, a couple minutes.
Okay.
It's nowish.
Hear me out.
Okay.
A self-created AI.
Oh my word.
I mean, if I'm going to be having all this great knowledge that I don't want to necessarily get out there, I might as well keep it, relatively accessible, and then also able to have a conversation with. because why would I not want it to calculate out like that?
Huh. So it's interesting. I can run with it. It depends on how we define this AI. Like if this is like a project, a big immovable project that you've got like somewhere in the lab, and you're like always working on it, kind of AI, then that definitely makes sense. If it's like you've got a Jocasta robot running around, that's not so much. We're not there yet.
No, it's a text, maybe voice to text converted through some of the software that exists out there now, but definitely a text based AI to have conversations with.
Okay. Is it bodied, or is it?
No,
Okay.
it's all on memory
Many banks of
sticks.
servers.
Okay.
Yeah, many banks of servers, double, triple, quadruple, quintuple copied everywhere. The amount of space these days isn't that difficult to get more space of,
Okay.
especially on a
I forced this
fancy
AI
faculty.
to watch 100 hours of Twitch streams.
We're talking more of a HAL.
It's not Jarvis.
HAL.
But it's definitely going to be like, I don't know, the bulletin board system version of Jarvis.
Canvas, Jarvis. I found the PDF you're looking for.
Okay, we'll figure out your AI, but
Sweet.
you've got some constructed being that is your confidant. That sounds to me like a conscious journal of a sort, right? This is something that you can engage with and tuck secrets into.
I mean, we can also like have it be embodied with spirit and having taken over by ancestors too. But like, I just figured that an AI would be a very interesting academic space start.
Interesting, yeah. It's funny because within the Chronicles of Darkness there is Prometheum, where there are the created, where somebody basically there's a Frankenstein's monster of some sort out there, and something like that could easily be the precursor to something run amok, because we all like to have AI go amok because that's what they do. I don't know why anybody ever makes an AI, because we know it's going to go amok. So
Ultron.
We will sort it out on offline and figure out what that actually looks like. But it's a good starting point. And April.
Can I have a puppy?
A puppy.
Or not to go full John Wick or anything, but
Oh man.
I was thinking Scrappy Doo, but
but can I have a
Wasn't
puppy?
about the dog.
Who does not like to talk to their dogs about their hard day?
So say that again.
Who does not enjoy coming home to their dogs after a very long day?
It depends on whether or not your dog is peed on the floor. But yeah, a dog. I can dig a dog. Does your dog have a name?
Yes, Buddy.
Buddy.
Yep.
Buddy's already a sweetheart.
That was gonna be my uncle's name.
Yeah.
It can still be.
Uncle Buddy.
It could be a point of conjecture.
That can be our bond. I too know a buddy, and we can Superman v Batman this.
I support all of this.
Your mom's name is Buddy too?
You too.
Why did you say that name?
Okay, all right. So those are all interesting characters. So now we get into so these are all things that are there to help us get into who we're playing. But now we start to switch into the more mechanical bits and pieces, which are attributes and skills and all that jazz. And does everyone have character sheets available to them to see the terminology?
Do you send those to us in the chat you started in, or did you email it to us?
I emailed it to everybody.
Okay, let me go find it.
It was yesterday, I think.
Yeah. So we have attributes broken down into basically mental, physical, and social spaces, and also in terms of power, finesse, and resistance. And so what I need you to do, just looking at them in terms of mental, physical, and social, is to organize them. rather prioritize them in terms of what's most important to you and what's least important. Whatever is, so the category that's most important, say for instance, physical is most important to you, that category you would have 5 dots to distribute. You start with 1 dot in each attribute, and then you distribute 5 more. The second most important category is going to get 4, and the least most important category to you is going to get 3.
On top of the, we get free
free
everything at 1. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So even with 3, you have the capacity to be average in everything if you want it to be, or you can be not so great in most of them and really good in something. So that's up to you. So take a moment to look at your attributes and organize them, and then decide how you want to distribute those points.
So say that again, 5, 4, and 3 across
5.
Each of the 3 phys, mental, and social.
Yes.
And that's 5 points for each of those 3 stats.
Right.
No, you get 5. So they all start at 1, and then you get 5 that you can choose where they go within that category that you said was primary.
Right. So for example, if you looked at using physical again, if you look at strength, dexterity, and stamina, they each already have 1 point. If you then take those the additional 5, you could put 4 into one stat and 1 into another, and that would give you a total of 5 in one stat, 2 in another stat, and 1 in the stat you put nothing into. So, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
You can distribute them however you want to. Nothing's going to go over 5.
And what do each dot represent in second edition? Is it the same as first?
I'm going to say yes, because I haven't actually looked at the scale.
Okay.
I can look at the scale really quickly for you if you that will help. But think of it basically as 1 dot is you're just below average. You're functional with it. I like to imagine it being closer to like what a kid has, and then 5 being you're just a badass Olympic level in whatever that thing is.
So 3 is about above average then. Yes. Okay.
Did you want to be on Twitch today?
Oh, Pupper.
No.
Carrying this out? Is this information we know about each other as a team? Do we discuss how we balance
That's something
these
we
out?
need to talk about soon, which is whether or not you know each other already as a team. The presumption is that as the hunters, you've already had some hunts under your belt. But whether or not this group is already a tight-knit cell, or if this is the first time you're all coming together, is a question we probably should answer before we start.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to answer it right now, though.
Well, if Gabe and I are both playing members of Sworn, I could see our characters having worked together before.
I'll make my last name be Winchester.
Oh my god. I wasn't saying we should be brothers.
I've never heard that name before.
We all know each other, Gabe.
But it's true, though.
It is.
That's how we got here.
So, out of curiosity, what are people thinking in terms of primary category?
I think as an ex-police officer, probably physical is really obvious.
Okay.
I'm not going to go for that intelligence stuff.
Intelligence. Okay. April?
For attributes wise,
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm mental first, into wits.
Okay.
And physical second.
Okay. Awesome. And Amber?
Likewise, I think I'm doing mental first and physical second.
And James?
Same. Mental first, physical second, I think.
That's interesting. So we don't have anyone in the group that has a high social.
I didn't say that. I'm going social second.
Oh,
I'm
okay,
gonna
okay.
let my physical be my dump stat. I'm a freaking professor.
Wait a minute.
You build all those muscles reading books all day, sitting in your chair writing papers. You get that strong wrist.
Social skills are actually really important in academia. I just figure that this Mr. Professor has been a hunter for a while, so he's developed a few, like he keeps himself active, but isn't good interacting with other people.
It's funny, social skills are important in academia, but I kind of feel like in academia, social skills have like this thing they do where they're up until you become tenured.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody's nice to everybody, but then you get tenured, you're like, the hell with everyone.
Unless you want to become a dean or something.
Yeah. But then no one's going to like you when you help. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah, every faculty member should have at least one dot of politics.
Okay, so take a moment, distribute your points and those stats.
Is it okay if we have an attribute at 1 dot?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, I have a question actually.
Sure.
So in first edition, they had a rule in character creation that if you're going to buy anything at the 5th dot, that you actually had to spend 2 of your points. Is that gone for this?
That is a good question. Let me double check.
Sorry to complicate it.
No, that's okay.
I believe I didn't see that, but I remember that for the first edition. Is this still the attributes are 4 XP per and it's flat rate?
Yeah.
I know they. Yeah, I think they're 4
in
XP.
character creation, it is a flat rate. So again, I haven't done this for a while, but the character creation was a flat rate, and then when you start doing it with merits, then and extra background points, that's when you had to be careful about how you spent those dots. But let me double check myself.
I seem to remember in the.
Oh no! All of our faces have gone away.
Oh no!
Nothing to see there.
Character creation.
I seem to recall in the God Machine Chronicle they said they got rid of the 5th dot costing 2 dots.
No, it's as is. Yeah, it looks like it's gone. It's just
okay.
It's been
Lovely.
Yeah.
As our it makes it easy. We don't have to do any extra math.
Yes. I
Yes.
love it. I hated that rule anyway.
I assumed it was because it wasn't flat rate that it was the double, which is why I double checked that it's all flat rate for each attribute costing 4. I'm like, it would make no sense.
Right. Yeah, that's what made my brain tickle when you asked that, because what do you do when you only have 5 dots?
Yeah.
To work with. There's like a phantom half dot that that sits around. I don't know.
Question.
Okay. Yes.
What should I be thinking about with the differences between intelligence and wits for this kind of character concept I'm going after?
Intelligence is more book knowledge, and wits is your ability to just kind of talk yourself out of things. It's mental quickness. It's mental how sharp how quickly you can respond to things mentally. Where intelligence is like how much stuff do you know. So you could totally be the person with the 5 intelligence and the 1 wits, and you'll know have all kinds of crazy book knowledge, but you walk into a bar and you can't talk to anybody.
That's too close to home. I can't do that.
Some shit.
Someone could yell, "Watch out," and throw a baseball, and you would not even notice. Smack you right upside the head.
What movie character do I want to be?
So are we all? How are we doing there? Good. I feel like I'm giving a test.
Not gonna lie, I already wrote down all my attributes.
I'm proctoring an exam right now. Okay, so let's keep things moving along here. So here's the fun stuff. It's skills. Skills to me is like the thing that really tells me, how damn cool you are. And remember that with the way these Chronicles of Darkness games work, all roles are going to be basically a combination of an attribute plus a skill. So think about this as you're buying your skills, and you are going to do the skills the same way. You're going to prioritize your skills in terms of what's most important, what's least important, what's in the middle ground for you. The most important set, be it mental, physical, or social, you will have 11 points to work with. And notice that there are no free dots in skills. So you actually have to buy that first dot. If you don't have a dot in a skill, then you are untrained in that skill.
So I'm going to go ahead and ask the obvious question. Sure. Do the skill dot ranks denote anything? In first edition, 3 dots was like, you are a professional.
Right.
Like you've done some professional level training in a thing. So I'm just making sure.
It varies from skill to skill. Definitely in the more mental, social skills, there is the idea that there's some level of professionality in 1 and 2 dots. I'm bringing up the skills right now.
I just know that 2.0 changes a lot of things. So.
It does. And I found myself kind of fumbling through it right now because I have these expectations from the old way of doing things. And I notice the numbers are just off enough that I'm wrong. Or I'm just wrong. So I'll be right by next week. But for now, I'm just wrong. And where's my list of skills at? So those are my compacts and conspiracies. Fine. Character creation. I'm looking up character creation right now. And I see good old find skills.
Oh, they have changed it.
Under chapter 3.
Sorry, I was right there.
I was too, and because it's not a bookmarked PDF.
Yeah.
We have to kind of dig through these, and I'm in the wrong page again.
Where do you write a touchstone on the character sheet?
Here we go. Do.
Oh, the sheet that we have doesn't have touchstones on it because it's the base human sheet from.
All these bits and pieces on it, but we're just using right now the Chronicles of Darkness character sheet.
I'm just using PDF since you
skills.
sent that as.
2 dots are sufficient for professional use. A single dot reflects cursory training. 3 is a high level of competency. 4 is outstanding, and 5 is absolute mastery of the discipline.
Yeah, they definitely shifted it. That's cool.
And it's worth noting that as part of character creation, you will get a free dot of professional training merit because you've had life separate from the Vigil. So if there's a profession that you're thinking of, you don't want to kind of just necessarily devote a skill dot towards it, or you want to support it with that. Keep that in mind. Later on, you could say, I have been a paramedic, and so I've got paramedic training. So what are people thinking in terms of their primary skill area?
I am actually going social because it's very important to keep people calm.
It's true.
I think I'm, again, obviously physical.
Obviously.
Well, I'm not a desk cop.
No. But you are. Were you a res cop?
Yeah, I'm ex-tribal police.
Okay.
And obviously not from Chicago.
No. Maybe there was some kind of like when I left the tribal police, they weren't too happy about it. So I'm like, well, I guess I'm moving then. Or maybe I'm just like out on the hunt and that's where the monsters are. Actually, I like that one better.
Out on the hunt.
Yeah. The monsters are in the cities.
Gabe?
Mental.
Amber?
I think this time around I'm going to go mental and then social.
Okay. And then James.
Yeah, looking at it, mental social, I think, despite not having a good grasp of people, he's learned certain skills to survive in a university department.
Okay. So distribute your points amongst your primary, secondary, and tertiary areas. And when you're done, the last thing I'd like you to do is pick 3 skill specialties. And so the deal with skill specialties is it's just an area that lets you refine a particular skill for you. So you might, for instance, well, first off, these are made up, right? So there's not really a definitive list of specialties like there are in various other role-playing games. So for instance, you might be a scientist who's doing anthropology, but maybe your specialty is a particular subset of cryptids in anthropological lore or something, and that's your specialty. So of course you're going to want to create a specialty that really supports the theme of your character, and so that we can say that there's a thing that you really do really well.
Just a quick question on skill dots. Sometimes the storyteller wants us to not go above a certain level. Do you have any restrictions?
No.
Okay.
So any thoughts on areas you want to specialize in?
My 3 skills specialties are medicine in fresh wounds, firearms in a shotgun, in empathy in bedside manner.
I like that.
Oh, it's 3 specialties across
bleeding
all
out,
3.
I would totally want your paramedic to help me out.
I am.
I'm sorry. I was
sorry.
going to ask if you're saying something, but you are, so say it.
I'm super tempted to take an expression specialty in lectures. But I'm certainly taking an occult specialty in folklore, an academic specialty in history, and I'm going to think about the third one for a second.
Oh man, it looks like the Twitch stream went down.
It's back up now.
It's back up.
Yeah, I had to refresh it.
I'm afraid to press the button. Oh, there it is. Okay, we're good. So could you say those again, James?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to take an occult specialty in folklore, an academic specialty in history, and I'm still thinking about the third one. I'm tempted by the lecture specialty in expression just because it's funny, but I don't think it's going to come up.
Okay.
But I think having done the Vigil for April's laughing at me for like a decade, I might take a firearms specialty. Like he's done gun courses and training. I'm still thinking about it a little bit.
Okay.
But
fair enough.
I'm leaning towards like a pistol spec or something.
JF.
Okay, so let's see, what did I put here? So I'm taking athletics running because of the chase. firearms, rifles, and though I don't know, maybe I should take pistols instead. I think I'll leave it. Maybe that's what I really favor at the range.
Okay.
And then I took Streetwise Lingo. Is Lingo a good specialty for Streetwise?
Lingo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like street lingo?
Sure.
Okay.
You never know when you need a Cockney accent.
I didn't mean that. I just do a JF cannot do a Cockney accent, so I'm not going to try.
Sure. Gabe.
I thought these specialties don't have to be in the same category.
No.
No.
You can also take more than one in the same skill.
Yes.
Oh. What would be the advantage of such hyper focus?
So you might have larceny, for instance, and maybe one of your larcenous activities you're really good at is pickpocketing. Another one might be running after you pickpocket. I don't know what's a good larcenous.
Lockpicks.
Lockpicks. Thank you.
Yeah, or security systems.
Right.
And to just say, can I just say ledger domain and get it all?
Ledger domain is not that game.
Oh.
I once had a character who had a larceny spec in barkeeping. He did like tricks, and I used larceny to justify it.
That's awesome.
But sometimes specialties stack. I was reading that in the book. They
Yeah, you can have a firearm specialty in shotgun, and then you can also have a firearm specialty in AoE, and then have like a spread situation. So, but that's more like with powers, from my understanding.
Okay.
And
well,
I also realize that we are doing a lot of this stuff off the cuff. So between now and Tuesday, you'll have time to refine these things. So maybe after you've had time to dig through the rules a little bit, maybe you find things that you want to change, new ideas that you want to update. We'll just do all that stuff before we actually begin play.
Okay. Well, then I definitely need AI as a specialization. And the only thing that I could think of to write under science was indigenous supernatural, so that's where I'm going so far. And then is charm too vague of a word for persuasion? Or does it need to be more specifically contextual in that way? Like social gatherings or meeting on the streets?
Sure.
First time encounters.
I think it works best when we can define when it comes into play. I think of these a little bit like, I know, tags in some of the other more story-driven games, where you just kind of use these little moments that you call into play.
Okay.
So
then I've got it. Okay. Under persuasion, information gathering.
Oh, information gathering as a persuasion. That's great. That's like a face man kind of. Awesome. And who did we miss? Amber, did we get?
Yeah, we haven't done me yet. I definitely want to do investigation, athletics, and persuasion, but I think I want to take time off stream to really think about what I want those to look like.
Okay.
But I know that those are definitely what I want as well.
That is perfectly okay. So then let's talk about compacts. Why does it keep doing that? Okay, let's talk about the compacts that you were.
We have lost our face. Oh, back. We briefly lost the faces.
Oh,
I think it's whenever Alan opens a PDF, it switches to those trees briefly, but it comes right back. So.
Well, I haven't gotten any hiccups.
No, it's only on the stream. Like, we don't see it on the Zoom that we're using. We can't tell it, but on the stream, whenever you open the PDF, it's briefly the trees.
Yeah, I have to master the switch. So a few hiccups here and there, but we'll get better over time. So we're going to see trees again because I'm switching to my notes. All right, so compact. So we talked a little bit about this. You've got a document that breaks down the compacts. Let me go through them really quickly, just the high level points for them. There's the long night, which are these kind of evangelical Christian hunters who believe the surge in monster activity is a sign of the end of times, and they're now fighting the tribulation war. They're ready for the revelation to begin. The loyalists of Thule, who are these occultists and German descendants from the Thule Society who are in debt to humanity and uphold the vigil to serve others. They're ashamed of their Nazi heritage and want to do better. Network Zero, who are savvy hunters who use technology, photographs, and film to warn people by revealing the truth that monsters are out there. And Network Zero really are our social media and technology folks. No Mysterious are scientists who research the paranormal and selectively share their findings to combat the supernatural.
Nice.
Sworn, which are indigenous hunters living in urban areas who defend and help local communities from predatory human and supernatural monsters. And then there's the Union, which are blue-collar, working-class heroes, hunters who band together to stop the supernatural from infringing on their home turf. So, what's interesting to people?
I mean, they're all really interesting and fascinating for their own
answer.
But I think what would make the most sense for my character would probably be the Union.
Union, okay.
I will also be going with the Union.
The librarians I know would appreciate a librarian in the Union.
Right?
And the paramedics I know would appreciate a paramedic in the Union.
I'm actually going to go with Thule Society.
Thule Society.
I really like their focus on academics and occult for this character, and I really like the idea of them, like their debt to society because of the history of the society, of the Thule Society, and their concern about fascism spreading through the world today. I like that idea.
Okay. I like that. JF.
I think Gabe and I were pretty committed to Sworn, right?
Yeah, and looking at the list, and then the question that falls below it is that if they're dual occupation of a compact, can you be a part of two compacts?
I forgot what the answer to that question is.
I seem to recall reading that you can in the document.
Right. There's a whole section about dual participation in more than one compact. Though when we're making our character, we have a starting place. So which one is yours? Which one? So if you're thinking of a dual, Gabriel, which one is your primary?
Sworn.
It's like your poly compact life.
Sworn.
You've got Sworn. Okay.
Sworn, and then Null Mysterious, being a scientist who would also be indigenous, who produces research in this academic space, is oddly compelling to me.
Okay. And we can talk about what that mix looks like and how it works later on. And then, did I get everyone? James? We said Sworn. So we got Union, Loyalists of Thule, and Sworn. That's an interesting combo. What was that noise?
That was me, and I am much concerned. I don't know what made that noise, but I am still with people, so that's all that matters.
Okay. It's a sign of the apocalypse.
Sign of something.
This note will self-destruct in 30 seconds.
Oh God, I hope not.
So every compact has a merit that's inherent to it. This kind of that represents your status in the compact, and there's a benefit that you get from it. So, and again, this is one of those things that's the difference between being in cells versus compacts versus conspiracies. Conspiracies will give you gadgets and all kinds of crazy stuff. compacts, though, typically give you more a set of skills and knowledge of particular bits of information, and being in a cell would just being, you're still alive, so be happy. So as the compacts you've chosen, let's start with the Loyalists of Thule. You basically each get you get 1 dot for free in the merit for that. So what I need you each to do is write down somewhere on your sheet, because I don't think your sheets actually have a place for you
Compact
for the
membership.
compact. Yeah, so just write down a merit that is the name of your compact. And so for my Loyalists of Thule, let's find you. Start with you. Your 1 dot. What does it give you? You have to atone for past atrocities and understand the knowledge you gain will save lives. When risking willpower in academics or occult-based roles, gain 2 willpower instead of 1 regardless of your current rating. So when you gain willpower in those places, you feel really good about what you've done, more so than other people, and so you benefit better from actually putting yourself out there and making good on those. So you have a thing called, I guess it's indebted. We'll figure out how to mark that on the sheet later on. Our union people, regular schmoes, union folks, your expertise has helped you on the hunt. You may use the 8 again quality when performing teamwork or tactics relevant to your trade. And we'll talk about teamwork and tactics next session, and you'll see how that works. But as long as you're working with your trade, you're going to be so much more efficient. And that's an important thing that you're going to have to figure out is, well, we already know what your trade. We have a paramedic and we have a librarian, so you're really going to shine in those spaces. And then last but not least, sworn. You're 1 dot. You've been taught how to deal with monsters according to your native traditions and know how to apply lessons to the hunt. You get a free skill specialty in investigation, streetwise, or stealth.
Does it say like what the specialty has to be, or we just choose what we want?
You just choose what you want. So those are the benefits of your compacts. And so the last things to talk about are merits. So you do get, actually let's do 2 things. We won't have enough time to really dig into the merits because there's a book full of merits and a lot to explain with them. So it's much easier if people take the time to read through them, find the ones they like, and then we can chat offline about what those things are and how they apply to your character. You all do get a free dot of professional training, the professional training merit, because you've had a life separate from the Vigil. You're not just killing monsters all the time. You're also out there making wages and having a living. So whatever your profession is, you actually do have a training dot in that. There's a merit called professional training. So you should write down professional training for whatever your profession is, and you've got 1 dot in that. You will have 7 more dots to distribute amongst merits, and reading through the various merits, you'll find the ones that you want to buy and how you actually go about buying them.
Cool.
But since we have a little bit of time left, I want to swing back around to the top and take a look at our, what were they called? The other 2 aspirations. So I already asked you each to come up with 1 aspiration, one piece of narrative that's important to your character. Now that you know a little bit more about your character, see if we can come up with 2 more aspirations that help define what this character is doing in the world, what they feel like they need to do in the world to make the world a better place, or just for themselves. What are the dramatic things that they want to have happen? What are the personal things they want to have happen?
I can go first.
Sure, have at it.
So I think so. I had the first one I had was an overarching like keeping her community safe, and I think that comes from a tension with her parents.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming that the interest in the occult and the supernatural stemmed from like high school years, and then becoming more and more insaturated as she went to college with like the things around her. And I think her parents would have been the type of people to kind of naysay everything, write it off as like trashy science fiction novels, you know, so on and so forth. And like, I feel like my character is really in the end just wants to prove her parents wrong.
Oh, I know this one. So that's one. Prove your parents wrong.
And I still haven't come up with a third one yet.
Okay, we'll come back around. Let's do a pass of one for each.
Sure.
April.
I think what really started my character in the Vigil is like there are usuals even in her industry, and one night probably one of the troublesome teenagers had a run-in with somebody bad, and that really kind of started off. So she wants to her next aspiration outside of the first one of just not having to see the monstrosity is trying to get more people to join in the Vigil, and basically her goal is to try to arm the people around her with knowledge. So her aspiration is protecting others by giving them something to arm themselves with, like whether that's knowledge or just general skills like how to protect yourself and stuff like that.
Okay. So how do we qualify that in a handful of words?
Help someone help themselves.
Yeah, helping somebody help themselves.
Okay. I like that. Gabe.
I think since the beginning of this is you know, primarily putting myself in a sworn, being able to get myself recognized by the Null Mysteries as an academic would probably be strong for a second. Still floating on the third right now.
That is such a native struggle. That's that, hey, you know, what I'm doing is real. Pay attention to me, you people who say that you're the only ones who are real.
Exactly. Playing it close to home makes it easier to play.
So again, let's capsulize that again in a small set of words.
I mean, it's just get recognized.
Get recognized by the Null
Mysteries.
Okay.
They're doing this.
Awesome.
Like whether or not publishing or something else, but some form of recognition by them.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. JF.
I feel like I'm going a really simple route in comparison to everyone else here, but I know some of them are like short-term ones, right? That you can do like really, and so I feel like maybe just having a successful encounter with a monster where I don't get my ass whipped.
I see that. I can totally see this guy is this dude who's he goes running into the woods and every time he's gone in, he's like come across like, you know, giant trolls or something.
Yeah, no, it's been bad. It's been bad. It's been bad. I'm probably operating with the cell because I'm figuring out that trying to do this on my own is not working out for me.
Awesome. James, what you got?
Get tenure.
Get tenure.
Not in the scope of this game.
That's going to take about 6 years.
No.
Yeah, I kind of envision, I don't know what the progression of character sheets in the game would be, but maybe he has a little bit of status in the university and he's really close to getting that promotion.
Okay.
But he's got some crackpot theories, so it's been an uphill struggle.
Okay. So getting tenure is awesome. You have any idea of what university you work at?
I've been looking at universities in Chicago just off and on, before we started, and I'm not sure yet.
Okay.
I'm not as familiar with the city or the schools in it, so I'm kind of looking.
You want Northwestern?
Yeah.
Do I? Okay.
I was going to say Northwestern or University of Chicago.
Okay.
So,
I was actually looking for kind of I had this idea that maybe he used to work at a more prestigious university and then, started talking about weirder and weirder things as folklore professors in horror games are likely to do. And maybe he works at like a much smaller school now.
So
Granted,
he was at
to get tenure there, but
it's like he was at University of Chicago, and then now he's like at Arizona, Phoenix Online.
maybe not that far, but I'm still working out the details.
Okay.
But
awesome. So one last round. So those are all interesting and big aspirations. One more aspiration for each character. We'll come back to Amber.
So I think the common idea of being a hunter is like you live fast, die young, and leave a mound of ugly corpses behind you.
That is some people's common idea.
I mean, you generally don't live very long in this profession, is what it comes down to. And I think my character really, really aspires to try to kind of beat that common thread and wants to live to an old age. Like, I think they want to do the best they can for the community, but also wants to retire and get that sweet, sweet pension that big librarians may or may not have. But, make that master's in library science really worthwhile.
She's got dreams.
Yeah, I think she just wants to live to an old age.
So it's kind of like a fight hard, don't die.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is a group with academic power. We could write some grants for you.
I'm just going to make it known right now. I think we should be called the Academiacs. But that's just my opinion.
What am I doing here?
Just throwing it out there.
I've got a degree in shooting guns.
Gabe, are you okay?
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. We are going to be zany to the max.
Yes.
It's time for Academiacs. Okay.
Yes, he's catching up. I win.
So, April.
I think my I'm sorry, my touchstone is awake. So, buddy, the touchstone.
That's perfectly the touchstone that can actually fit in your pocket.
Yes, so I just willpower every time I hug it. No, I just my final aspiration is like my character is probably very reluctant to admit this in the the academiacs that she is hanging out with, but I think her final aspiration is actually learning what she's fighting, because like she knows so much about medicine, but what is this? Why do they make these wounds? And she's gonna have no dots of occult, so she's just gonna be like, what are we fighting? I know that if I put enough bullets, it will stop moving. So her final aspiration is actually to learn about the monster she is fighting.
Okay. Awesome. Gabriel.
Upgrade my AI friend. I mean, self-centered driven. Like that's a perfect to move on from text to voice. Maybe there's a holographic body someday in there.
I'm gonna call him Philip.
One day you can have like a Pokédex for it.
Yes. Yeah.
You can be like, Chasuke, what is that?
This is gonna be so cool. It'll get its own character sheet.
JF.
All right. My last one is going to be that I need to teach one of these nerds the value of throwing your books in the trash and picking up a stick and beating something to death.
There's value in this.
There it is.
I've seen it. Awesome. So that translates into getting, when somebody has actually said, "I'm done. Let's go. Let's kill it." Double tap. You won. Okay, James.
They're demanding that I bring in my own pet. Now there are pets everywhere. So this is Zuzu. Not exactly the black cat mascot that I was talking about, but she's not happy to be here. I think so. I have an aspiration that's like long-term but Vigil related, and I have an aspiration that's very mundane. So I think a smaller Vigil related one. Mr. Professor really wants to find some kind of monster-based evidence. Like he wants to read a witch's book or find a vampire journal or something that's more tangibly, how do I word this? Maybe find some kind of physical evidence that proves a monster, even though he, wouldn't publish it. He's looking for physical literary proof.
Sure.
I guess for his folklore obsession.
Okay.
So yeah.
And is that everybody? Did we do April? Amber?
Yep.
I think that's everyone.
Okay. That's everyone. Awesome. So I think we have a pretty good idea of who these characters are. We've got a few dots to resolve over the course of the week. But I think we're relatively ready to start jumping in and bashing some monsters. The last thing that I wanted to ask of the group is, and I guess you've already answered this question, does the group know each other? Have you worked together before? And it sounds like with a name like the Academiacs.
If we have a group name, then obviously it's meant to be. We gotta be friends.
I think chat wants us to be called the Defenders of Doggo, by the way.
Defenders of Doggo. So, what's funny is that my game studio over at DePaul, we're working on a dog game, and the kids voted to name the studio the DePaul Originals Game Studio, so that the acronym became DOGS.
Good.
Yay. So yes, you all know each other. You've had some previous adventures, or is this a first meeting type scenario?
I would say we've had at least. I would be comfortable saying we've had at least one adventure together before.
Yeah, and Amber, maybe you and I have met each other a little bit longer since we're both union and very much protect the community.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
So here's what I'm going to ask you to do then, and this is totally not a Hunter thing. This is an Alan thing, and just kind of helps me to see how everyone jives together. Is now that you know, we don't actually have character names. We should get character names. But over the course of the week, maybe if everyone can pick 2 characters that they have an old story with.
Okay.
All right, James.
Well, we already decided us, yeah. So I also probably, I mean, I'm not telling you what to do, but I imagine the 2 union characters probably have a relationship.
Quite possibly.
Yeah.
So
anybody could have come through my ambulance.
They could have. So
that's also legit.
And the thought being that there is a unifying thread across the entire group. So everybody knows these 2 other characters better, and there's some prehistory, and we can use that over the course of our telling. Cool.
I would also like to have gone to a library once.
I imagine that at least one of these academic people has come into a library.
What's the point?
I'm going to assume that all of you have taken out Bullfinch mythology at least once.
All of those books are written by out-of-touch white people. I'm not going to read a single one.
Yes, I can support that. Finger snaps around.
I think out of touch white people is the defining line of the Thule Society. So
Yeah.
They're trying to get back in touch.
That's true.
Thule Society, let us touch you. Whatever.
I
And
am so excited for the tomfoolery that's going to come out of this group. I'm just putting that out there right now.
Awesome. So I guess one last thing I want to ask of these characters. We kind of already know with JF's character that you're not necessarily from Chicago, but you're in the area. Think about whether or not you are Chicagoans, or if you're just kind of coming in for whatever reason. So, for example, our librarian probably is somehow or another located in the city.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of professors travel all the time. Not at my school; they won't pay for it, but but they do it. I hear stories, and paramedics, you never know what kind of craziness you're going to get involved with.
Oh yeah.
And the idea there being, it becomes a little easier to kind of pull everyone together once I know what your background is, where you're coming from. And if this turns into a longer campaign, then I get an idea of where we can be taking you to. That's what I have. Any questions from you all? Any burning issues that need to be resolved before we
Not here.
log off?
So the goal is to form connections over the week and fill in any holes and add the merits.
Yes.
Okay.
And the merits aren't necessarily tied to that. So the figuring out connections is totally a narrative.
Sure.
Right. With the merits, there are tons of merits, and if you look at the pre-release stuff that I sent you, there's a ton of them. Find the ones that resonate with the character story you're trying to tell. Also think long term, long term and short term, like over a couple sessions. If there were any character points being handed out, what might you be looking forward to putting a point in the short term? Think about any equipment you think you need to have, and we can talk about what that looks like. Things like, my general rule is to presume you have what you need to be who you are. If something like a shotgun is fine, but there's no one running around with an antimatter ray gun or any of that kind of craziness. Nobody's got a dead man's hand. It's all, unless you have it as a merit, and you've got a merit that says, "Hey, I've got this weird little artifact that my grandma left to me, and it happens to be my uncle's hand." Well, then what can we do about that?
So only merits from the preview material.
Yes.
Okay.
Not necessarily. Well, in the Chronicles of Darkness, there are a bunch of merits which are supernatural merits that a human can take, and we're going to shy away from those. So you won't be running around with telekinesis and all that kind of
shucks.
stuff. But so focus in on the merits that are in the pre-release material, but don't be afraid of looking at the Chronicles of Darkness book if you have access to it, and saying, "Hey, Alan, there's like this really cool merit. I think it applies to my character." And 9 times out of 10, I'll say yes. Sometimes I'll say yes with a caveat. The 10th time it'll be a hell no. It'll always be like a very strong, "What were you thinking?"
So no way I can obfuscate to the stacks department. Got it.
Yeah, absolutely.
How many merits do we get?
You get 7.
Oh.
And
The
what's nice
drop-down
is if
menu.
you look on your snazzy character sheet, at the bottom of the sheet, it has all the numbers you get already spelled out for you.
And I would not be a proper gamer if I didn't ask if we were starting with any extra XP.
Extra.
Well, in the book, it said something about more experienced characters start with. I'm that kind of gamer.
Yeah, no, I understand. I would ask that question too. For now, I'm going to say no.
Perfect.
The presumption is that you have some expertise under your belt. but you're not yet the badasses you want to be. You will be. By the end of this chronicle, there will be legends told about you.
Nice.
A ballad.
And our dogs.
And our dogs. That's important.
Yes, and your dogs.
The
So
cat can come.
I think we're done for now.
Well, before we go,
Mhm.
do you want to check and see if chat has any questions that they'd
sure.
like to ask?
But yeah, throw them out.
I see there's a question about vehicles and maybe about how long we've all been role playing.
Where do you see that at?
In the chat and Twitch. Do you have
Yeah.
your Twitch window open?
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Do you want me to just read it to you? I can just
Sure.
read it to you.
Read it to me.
Okay, so Suke Chick asks, I remember Bad Monkey King had a question about vehicle availability and where in the book that's detailed.
Oh.
Twitch crashed on me, and if it was answered, I've missed it.
I do not know. I don't recall seeing vehicle availability addressed in the pre-release materials that we have, but it might be something that I can dig up in the Chronicles of Darkness book and refer back to that. So anything I don't have in the pre-release stuff, I'm going to refer back to the rules in the Chronicles of Darkness book.
I think it also, I'm just going to help too.
Sure.
I'm not 100% sure, but I think there also might be some stuff on vehicles and Hurt Locker.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
I do have Hurt Locker.
Yeah, I think they might have some in there.
Vehicles are in the Chronicles of Darkness book on page 98.
Look at
Okay.
you with the numbers.
Oh,
Sorry, it's I spent 10 years working with rules with a LARP group, so it's PDFs are secondhand.
So another question, Calvin Killed a Vampire wants to know how long we've all been involved in role-playing. My answer is 22 years.
Oh, man. I have to do math now.
Alan.
What year is this? 2019?
Oh, we're
2020
now.
Oh, shit. 2020, so that actually makes it easier. I want to say about 30 years.
Wow.
35?
Got me beat.
Yeah. It's been a while. I'm prehistoric. I was gaming before there was internet, and people could tell you you're doing it wrong, so we all just did it wrong, and no one knew. Anybody else?
I guess if we want to get technical, I have been role playing since I got my hands on a very beat up old advanced D&D when I was the tender age of 11.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I obviously skipped over most of the rules that my tiny tender 11-year-old self didn't understand, but I'd say I probably got really into like real role playing and TTRPGs in general when I was about 15. So, and I'm 31 now.
Wow.
So
Yeah, I'm 51 and I've been doing it since early high school.
oh, wow.
So yeah, it's been a while. I mean, oh wow. But I do remember playing Dungeons and Dragons in the back of pre-calculus class,
Nice.
where we had a group of people that we had this teacher who would go off on weird tangents, so we would just kind of start a tangent, get him going off, and then we'd go back and kill goblins.
Yeah, I've been role playing since middle school. I'm 34 now. I'm 34, right? Yeah. Started with AD&D second edition. I've been using COD mechanics back when it was New World of Darkness since Requiem came out. So.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Oh, Bad Monkey said there's a merit in Hurt Locker, but the vehicle list doesn't say anything about availability.
Oh, they're talking about the resource cost, I think.
Oh, I see.
That's like a pretty technical question. I'm not sure the answer.
Okay, yeah, I definitely can at this point.
Did everyone answer the role playing question?
No, April.
Or- April.
I've been my first tabletop was when I was 18, so 13 years or yeah, 13 years now.
Wow.
There's another question.
There was
Well,
Did I miss someone?
yeah.
Sorry.
there was one about what's your favorite World of Darkness faction. Did I see that?
And also one about all our pets. They want to know our pets' names
pets'
too.
names.
So my dog's name is Gaucher, which means dog.
Uh, my baby is Buddy.
I'm gonna go get a stuffed animal. I'll be right.
I've got a dog named Rose and a parakeet named Innocence.
Aw. My dog is named Jack and Hagar, and he is the worst assassin ever.
The orange tabby that you saw is a female cat named Zuzu, and she is a princess because female orange tabbies are very rare. And the cat that we haven't seen is a American short hair that's all black named Squeaker, but she has not shown herself tonight.
Awesome. So you're welcome. Thanks for asking interesting questions. So
I don't know how to answer the faction question.
Oh, I actually do have an answer for the faction question. I've got two. The Fianna in Werewolf the Apocalypse, because I got to play crazy Irish werewolves, and it was actually the game that let me taught my wife how to play role playing. We wound up doing this one person game where I was the storyteller, and as we were dating, I was running adventures for her and her Irish werewolf. And interestingly enough, she was a librarian. So,
Amazing.
and then the other one was the Sons of Ether and Mage, because they were just wacky, right? That was the place where you totally could have the character who shouted, "I have an anti-matter ray gun," and it worked.
It would just make sense.
It just made sense.
Yeah.
So I like wild and goofy. So awesome. So really quickly, once more around the loop, can everyone say their name, where they can be found on the interwebs, and then we'll sign off. We'll start with Gabe.
Again, my name is Gabriel de Los Angeles, and I guess you can find some of my work on academia.edu under my name.
My name is April Songer, and you can just find me on Facebook or not.
Amber.
My name's Amber, and on most of the social medias, I go by the Rebel Selkie. You can find me on Twitter as the Rebel Selkie, and I post all sorts of tomfoolery and game stuff, and yeah, a whole bunch of things. Please come see me.
Awesome. James.
My name is James Foster. You can find me on Twitter at Umbra Venetier and with the Mind's Eye Society, which is a national art group that runs WAD and COD. And my favorite faction are Maquette Vampires.
Awesome. JF.
Feel free to add me on Facebook, James Sembrano on Facebook. I'll add anyone until you have proven that I need to remove you. And you can find my Patreon at JF Sembrano. And my Twitter is JF High, JIGH.
Awesome. And I'm Alan Turner. You can find me my blog, which is Council of Fools, council-of-fools.com/blog, or at Council of Fools on Twitter. And Twitter, I like how, I don't know why I said it like that. And just look up Alan Turner on Facebook and say hi. I'm all over the place. And we will be back again next week, Tuesday at 9 p.m. Central Time, and ready to make the world of Chicago a happier place in the night. Thanks so much, everybody, for coming out and participating, and I'm looking forward to gaming with you all.
Yeah, thank you. See you next week.
See you next week. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Did that work? I think
Are we officially on?
I'm waiting to see if the actual Twitch channel changes.
It's on a delay, so
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
it's almost like 5 minutes. I've been paying attention
is
to it.
Okay, so we're good. I think we're good. Thanks, everybody. Hope that was fun for
Awesome.
you. I know it's just character creation, but it's a nice opportunity to kind of get a feel for how people think. We will be, so same thing next week. We're a little after 8:30, between 8:30 and 9 o'clock. We all congregate. Hopefully the technical issues won't be so great, and we'll jump right into it.
Sounds good.
I would like to, oh yeah, hey, I would like to, you all want to do a Discord or email fine for talking, or how do you prefer to chat?
I'm
I'm
a member
fine.
either.
I'm fine with email, but I really like Discord. I think it's easy to chat on Discord.
Okay.
They're telling us that our mic's still hot.
Donate to my Ko-fi. Give me money. You guys hear me?
Okay.
My dog needs kibble. Do it for second.
Yeah, follow my Patreon. I need dog food for Gaucher.
Okay.
See,